Welcome, baseball fans. So my name is Bruce Adams, and I am really pleased. Thank you. Pleased on behalf of the Bethesda Community Baseball Club to welcome you here to this dedication ceremony at Shirley Povich Field. I'm very happy to welcome 7 of the original members of the Bethesda Community Baseball Club are here with us today. These folks are why we've been able to have 2 decades of Big Train baseball at Povich Field. Stuart Bindeman, Neil Cohen, Skip Davis, Don Graham, John McMahon, John Orsman, and Maury Povich. So I am grateful to them and to Robbie Brewer, our lawyer, who set us all up. The community is grateful to you all and appreciate that you're here. I want to thank the current members of the board who are working hard to maintain our formula of small town charm and big league talent. John Daniel is here, Bill Hickman, Dick Lipsky, and Alex Thompson. To our Hall of Fame manager, who's up in the seats up top, Sal Colangelo, and his coaches who keep us on the Cal Ripken League Championship track year after year. Galvin Morris, Bob O'Connor, Sam Bender, and Craig Lopez. So I'm really pleased. Thank you for that. The board and the staff, the coaches make this possible. So I'm really pleased today to honor 2 legends in sports journalism. ESPN's Tim Kirkjian is a living encyclopedia of baseball. The Big Train has been so lucky to have Tim come year after year and meet with our players, and year after year to headline our annual fundraiser. He has graciously allowed our interns who broadcast our games, produce our social media, write our game stories, to carry his name as the Tim Kirkjian Sports Journalism Fellows. I'm pleased to present Tim with a replica of a plaque that will hang. Tim, will you come up? I've got a plaque here for Tim that will soon hang on the clubhouse wall with a Tim Kirkjian Sports Journalism Fellows. And I've asked Tim to reflect briefly on Walter Johnson's Hall of Fame career. Thank you, Tim. Let's hear it for Tim.
So I have written and said many times that Walter Johnson is the greatest pitcher of all time, to which one of my friends said, if you had gone to Sandy Koufax High School, then you would say Sandy Koufax is the greatest pitcher ever. No. Walter Johnson is the greatest pitcher ever. There is not a close second. He won 417 games. He had a 2.17 ERA. He threw 110 shutouts. He had 38 1-0 shutouts in his career, which is more than the career shutouts combined for Pedro Martinez and Curt Schilling by shutouts of any score. Walter Johnson is also one of the greatest hitting pitchers ever. 10 years in a row, he had a higher batting average than he had an ERA. Think about that for a second. Also, he was the strikeout career leader for 56 years. And the great Shirley Povich, who I adored, told me once, he said, I saw Bob Feller, I saw Nolan Ryan, I saw Walter Johnson, I saw all of them, and nobody threw a baseball harder than Walter Johnson. And I went to Walter Johnson High School. Walter Johnson died on December 10th, 1946. I was born on December 10th, 1956. I have this wonderful connection with Walter Johnson, the greatest pitcher of all time. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Tim. George Solomon is best known to you for building a staff of extraordinary talent and diversity at the Washington Post Sports Department. At our friendship game with the Olympic-bound Team Israel in July, we announced that we are naming our press box after George. So George, will you come up? Today I'm pleased to give George a replica of the plaque that will be on the George Solomon press box. George was Shirley Povich's colleague, his editor, and his friend, and I've asked George to reflect briefly on the career of Shirley Povich. George.
Thank you, Bruce. It's great to have something named while you're still alive, which is very unusual. But he asked me to speak, Bruce asked me to speak 90 seconds on Shirley Povich, and Shirley Povich did nothing in 90 seconds, so don't count on this being held to 90 seconds.
I'm watching.
Shirley wrote as well in his 80s and 90s as he did when he was a young man. And people said that we used to hire good young sports writers. I think the best hire I ever made was convincing Shirley Povich to come out of retirement when he was 74. And he was great. He loved Walter Johnson. He loved the Washington Post. He loved Phil Graham, Katharine Graham, and Donald Graham. He had great affection for baseball. He would have loved Max Scherzer. He wouldn't have loved seeing Max Scherzer dealt away, but he certainly did. And he loved his family, and they're here today, and I think they deserve a round of applause. He used to say, Poviches root for Poviches. And I told my sons, Solomon should root for Solomons, and they roll their eyes. He would have loved Povich Field and all it stands for. He would have, because he loved baseball, and he loved baseball at its roots, which is what this is for. Very often we used to talk to Shirley in staff meetings and around the office, and Shirley would regale us with stories about his conversations with Walter Johnson, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, and one time Michael Wilbon, who Shirley loved, said, Shirley, what's the greatest sports event you covered in all your 70 plus years at the Post? And Shirley did go 75 years at the Post. And he looked at Wilbon and he said, Jim Dandy upsetting Gallant Fox in the 1930 Travers Stakes at Saratoga. And all those guys rolled their eyes. And I said, who would remember Jim Dandy winning the Travers Stakes in 1930 but Shirley? And, I should go to Saratoga and remember that. But most of all, Shirley loved baseball. He dreaded the fact Washington did not have a team for 33 years, and he would have loved that night in 2019 when Washington won the World Series. But he would have loved Maury Povich wearing a fedora to honor his father. Thank you very much.
Good job. Thank you, George. I want to welcome now two of our impressive young county council members to please come up to welcome you today, Gabe Albornoz and Andrew Friedson. I want to thank these guys. Andrew, will you come up with Gabe? I want to thank these guys for the work that they do to support giving our youth out of school time opportunities to thrive. And I want to give special thanks to these two guys for working closely with us last spring to develop a COVID plan that allowed us to bring the fun back to Povich Field in 2021. Gabe, you go first.
Well, what an honor and privilege to be here with all of you this afternoon. I still get the paper copy of the Washington Post every morning, and I immediately turn to the most consequential, historically significant section, our sports section. And my son, who's 11 years old, who plays with BCC Select, and we're here about 50 times a year on this spectacular campus, now has to wrestle the sports section away from me, because we are continuing the legacy that Shirley and the writers of the Post and the editors have established for generations. Sports at their best bring together generations, cultures, and communities. And we, 3 years ago, established the Montgomery County Sports Hall of Fame here in Montgomery County to celebrate sports achievement, but all the best that sports provides. My colleagues and I are committed to not just commemorating this spectacular sculpture, and by the way, we need a sculpture of Bruce Adams one day here in Montgomery County, but to honor the Povich family, the Johnson family, and the thousands of other athletes that we have here in Montgomery County and the volunteers that make it all possible. So it's an honor and privilege to be here today. I can't wait to show my son and our family this spectacular sculpture, and thank you once again to the Povich family and the Johnson family for allowing us to honor your families in this way. Thank you.
Andrew.
Well, I'll second the statue here for our good friend and look forward to being back for that important occasion. But I was going to open similarly to what Gabe said. Earl Warren said that every day he opened up the sports page first and the front page last. The front page was all about humanity's failures. The sports page was all about humanity's successes. It was all about triumphs. And that's really what sports is. That's really what this place means. That's really what Shirley Povich wrote about every day. Even as a DC sports fan in the modern era, I can attest to the fact that the sports page is about successes. It is just such an honor to be here. And Tim Kirkjian might not remember this, but Tim Kirkjian spoke at University of Maryland. We were together on the platform for my graduation, for the graduation ceremony there, and had a fascinating conversation about steroids in baseball and some of the dark chapters in baseball. And it speaks to how baseball really does transcend sport. And Shirley Povich transcends sports. And we're just so lucky to have this important moment here to commemorate this, and not only to talk about history, which is really what the statue talks about, but to be in a place where the future is taking place, where the next great baseball players, where the next great stories, where the next triumphs of our community will take place. So thank you for being here to commemorate our past. We're so honored to be in the presence of so many dignitaries, so many important families in Montgomery County history, but we're also here to not only look backwards at the great history that we have in Montgomery County, but to be proud to look forward on what we have in our future. And certainly this place, this special place that so many of you have been so instrumental in creating, will be part of Montgomery County's future in perpetuity. So thank you so much for everything that you do, and look forward to sharing so many moments with you here again.
Thank you, Gabe and Andrew. And Walter Johnson was not just in the inaugural Cooperstown Hall of Fame, but in the inaugural Montgomery County Sports Hall of Fame. So thank you. So now, Maryland State Senator Cheryl Kagan, please come up. Cheryl ate a cicada at Povich Field this summer, and Andrew did as well. And she has the T-shirt to prove it. Cheryl.
Thank you, Bruce, and congratulations to Bruce and the entire team, everyone who has been a part of this wonderful day and this wonderful project. Bethesda Big Train pulls together sports, fellowship, economic development, and now arts are part of enriching that. Toby Mendez, thank you for your sculpture. I get to walk past the sculpture of my birthday buddy, Thurgood Marshall, every day that the Senate is in session. And for Shirley Povich, over 15,000 columns. I have to say that one of them featured my dad, who made a hole-in-one at Washingtonian Country Club when I was about this big. And I can say it was a real high point in his life. So I congratulate you all. And I want to just say, that's kind of what I wanted to say. So anyway, looking forward to many more happy times and coming back to Bethesda's Big Train on Shirley Povich Field. Congratulations.
Thank you, Cheryl, who's been a longtime fan here. So we're pleased to have our County Executive, Marc Elrich. Marc, please come up. It's hard to overstate the difficulties our elected executives have faced over the last 19 months, and we're grateful to Marc that he found time to be here. We think even county executives deserve some fun.
Absolutely. So a couple of things. One is, I always read the front page first because the sports were my relief. I mean, after getting through the news, you want to see something funny, or something interesting. The other thing is, I grew up going to Griffith Stadium. And my most memorable thing about Griffith Stadium, other than I was a Yankee fan, I confess, I like to see my heroes down there. But going down to Griffith Stadium and the bread from the Wonder Bread factory, that smell will be ingrained in me forever. But this is a really great moment because we're unveiling a piece of art here. And we're unveiling it to two people who are artists. Walter Johnson was an artist of a pitcher. And you talked about his great accomplishments, but the thing that struck me was 3 starts in 4 days and winning all of them. 3 starts in 4 days. It's a struggle to get a pitcher to come out on 3 days rest now. So that was rather remarkable. And Shirley Povich, as a kid, when I was reading the sports page, his stories were always so insightful and interesting. He had a good touch. He conveyed the humanism of everybody he was writing about, and he made being interested in sports fun. It was like an intelligent read, the kind of thing you'd expect in other forms of journalism that we were getting in the sports page. And so it was a real pleasure for me to read him. It's great to know about Walter Johnson. He probably is the greatest pitcher of all time, and it is astounding what he accomplished. And I'm just so happy to be here to see this. And thank you, Bruce, for your work with Big Train and making this amazing field here and training the future athletes, developing the future athletes, really. And I'm just proud of all this stuff happening in Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you, Marc. I failed to note that Walter Johnson, after he retired from baseball, was a county commissioner, now the job of county council. So thank you. Our friend Jamie Raskin called from the floor of the House last night to express his disappointment to the Povich and Johnson families that he could not be here this morning to personally express his appreciation. Connie Morella's in the house. She knows what it means when the speaker tells you what you're supposed to do the next day. Now, we want to hear from our landlord. We love our landlord. Every time over the last 2 decades that Big Train has needed help on this field, I have sought out Mike Riley, and he has every time solved my problem. The really cool thing is he worked his way all the way up to be the director of Montgomery Parks. And it was almost exactly 1 year ago that Mike came over here and we looked at this and we figured out where these sculptures should be. And Mike, I just want to thank you and your staff, David, Richard, Jay, Wen, all these folks were just very positive and responsive. We appreciate the partnership. Mike Riley.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Well, welcome everybody to Cabin John Regional Park, home of the Shirley Povich Field and the Bethesda Big Train. I know we're here today to honor Shirley and Walter and thank many people for making this happen, including Bruce and Maury and Toby and many others. But Bruce asked me to be very brief, so I will. I only have one point to make. When Bruce Adams approaches you and says, I have an idea and I need your help, if you don't plan on dropping everything and putting that on the top of your list, you better run and run fast, because he just does not take no for an answer, as I'm sure many of you in this audience know. But this has been a great partnership. This field, the Povich Field here that is in front of me, happened in 1999, thanks to Bruce and many of you who are here. This button I'm wearing is not today's button. It is the button from the original 1999 opening. And as you know, it not only hosts Georgetown and the Big Train, but this is our most used field in the park system. A lot of leagues and kids and community groups get to play here, and think how special it is for a young baseball player to play in a stadium like this. So thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Maury. Thank you, everybody who's made today happen. As Bruce said, I need to thank my staff. Once I said yes to this wonderful project, I asked my staff to step up and work with Bruce and make it a priority, and they did, and I think it turned out absolutely wonderful. And the last thing I want to say is I also will go to my grave walking down to the end of my driveway, picking up the Washington Post every morning, and pulling the sports page out first before I read anything else. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mike, to you and your team for just a fabulous job. So we're honored to have the chair of the Montgomery County Planning Board, Casey, come up, joining us today. I'm grateful to Casey for building a park staff with a vision to work creatively with community groups like ours, understanding the capacity we have to expand the reach of government to serve our public. Casey.
So it falls to me to say, we appreciate your money, and we'd like some more of it. Bruce has been fantastic. This, in many ways, is the house that that Bruce and John Orsman and others helped the Parks Department to build. And you see not just the field, but the Davis family pavilion here. All around you see what we've been able to do with our partnership with Bruce and others who really care, not just about baseball, but really care about this community. And that's what this is about. I think that's what playing sports are about. That's what watching sports are about. That's what reading about sports in the newspaper is about, because then you talk about it with your friends, with your family, with your children, and you pass on that tradition. I think Glenn Orland knows what I'm talking about. We have so many famous politicians and athletes here, but the picture I want is with Glenn Orland in his senator's uniform. But really, we do appreciate your help, and if you are interested in helping us build on this great legacy that Bruce and John started so many years ago, we'd really like to talk to you. We really do appreciate it, and we need it, because that's how we're going to make this community continue to grow and prosper and connect in the future.
And the Parks Foundation is here in the house today.
And I saw John Robinson there, is right there, if you'd like to speak to him, whether you're into baseball or picnic shelters or sculptures or just about any other thing you care to name in the parks. We would love to talk to you about whatever it is that you're interested in. So thanks very much for letting me put in a plug for the parks and for community, not to mention great public art and baseball. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Casey. Well, good ideas are wonderful, but it does take more than good ideas to make something happen. I want to recognize our generous donors who made this project possible. While we've had great cooperation from Montgomery Parks, every dollar for this project came from private donors, and they are all with us this morning. Maury Povich and Connie Chung. Skip Davis is here from the Floyd E. Davis Family Foundation. Don Graham, Knight Kiplinger, from the Kiplinger Foundation, John and Lisa Orsman, David and Connie Povich, Linda Povich, and Stephen Shepard. So thank you all for your generous donations. Let's hear it for the donors. John Orsman was right when right from the start in 1999, he wanted Povich Field to be a living history museum, educating future generations about our baseball heroes. With these sculptures, we have made sure these Washington sports icons will be known and valued for decades to come. And many thanks to our team of corporate all-stars who built this wonderful community space. Bess Fence, Walker Simpson's here from Creative Concrete. Guy Brahmi is here from Gelberg Signs. Gelberg Signs has done all the signs, all the banners for more than 2 decades here. Dick Legan and Jordan Day from Richard Legan Architects invested an enormous amount of time and creative talent in this project. Now, I said Montgomery Parks was positive and responsive. I didn't say they were easy. These guys worked really hard. Stonework by Santo built this elegant wall. Tom Tate from Thomas Tate Gardens is here. Tom, along with Reykjavik Landscape, donated this handsome garden that we have. And now for the man of the hour. If someone had told me that one day we would have sculptures of the 2 great icons of Washington sports world, Shirley Povich, for whom our ballpark is named, and Walter Johnson, for whom our summer college baseball team is named, and that they would be sculpted by the artist who turned my Birdland heroes into bronze at Camden Yards, I suspect I would have expired with delight. Toby Mendez is a nationally recognized sculptor with a spectacular portfolio focused on civil rights and sports, and a beautiful human being. I mean, endlessly patient when we would ask him to tweak the chin once again. I am so pleased to introduce to you Toby Mendez.
Wow, what a wonderful introduction, Bruce. Thank you. He said it the way I wrote it, perfect delivery. Bruce mentioned that I'm known for civil rights sculptures, Thurgood Marshall, Maggie Lena Walker, Thomas Kennedy, and also for my sports art, my work with the Orioles and the Red Sox. And I think of those 2 worlds they are so separate conversations, but this work of art brings them together. And you know, you think about your heroes. You know, I'm known for doing the sculpture of Nolan Ryan, and Nolan Ryan is often compared to Walter Johnson. And you know, Shirley Povich. Years ago, I did a monument to Walter Sondheim, who is known in Baltimore for desegregating the public schools when Brown versus the Board of Education was handed down. And I said to him that a hero, according to Thurgood Marshall, is someone, when they have a voice, they use it. And Shirley prodded and provoked Major League Baseball to desegregate. And he prodded and provoked what were the Washington Redskins to do the right thing and integrate. And so he's my hero. So thank you.
Thank you, Toby. So before we hear from our final two speakers, I'm going to ask Toby and Maury, Hank, Mike, and Casey to come up, and we're going to unveil these sculptures. This is what you've been waiting for. No, Hank, you're here? Maury, you're here. Right there. And you're gonna. Okay, Toby, you're in charge. Tell them what to do. We've been waiting for this.
Count of three. 1, 2, 3.
There they are. Let's leave a little time for some photos here. That's what we wanted to hear. He looks like him.
I hope so.
Hank worked for 3 hours up in that studio. Okay, thank you. Hank is going to be next up. He's Walter Johnson's grandson. He's Walter Johnson's biographer. And if you haven't read this book, you need to read Hank's book on Walter Johnson. Hank was also the founding general manager of Big Train Baseball, working with John Orsman and me to shape this community jewel. So we're grateful to have Hank and the Johnson family members with us today. Hank, tell us what it means to you and your family to have Big Train Baseball at Povich Field and now add these two fabulous sculptures.
Thank you. Is that your way of keeping it short, Bruce? You're going to ask me questions? We're going to have a Q&A?
2 minutes, Hank.
Peggy told me I only had 2 minutes. Right. Yeah. But I did a lot of editing. So, well, it's just, it's an enormous thrill to be here today representing the Walter Johnson family. There have been many honors over the years for my grandfather, for being a great pitcher, also being a great human being. And this is one of the many reasons this beautiful work of art is so appropriate, is that I can say the same about Shirley Povich, who I was lucky to get to know a little bit. If I start cracking up here, just give me a second. But this, because I've been involved over the years, and also because it's just such a wonderful community resource, the Bethesda Big Train and Shirley Povich Field mean more to me than just about any of those. I wasn't at Cooperstown in 1939, so that would probably top the list if I had been. But so I'm trying, Bruce. I'm trying. I would like to recognize the other members of the Walter Johnson family that are here today. My sister Karen. Karen, stand up, please. My cousin Eleanor. So there are 3 grandchildren here today. I want to thank Bruce Adams and Peggy Engel. I was involved at the beginning of this. I have my button, and I was so thrilled to see. I'm a collector, And wow, now it's a collection. It's not just, so anyway, I hope there'll be some more of those that I can add. You know, the work, the vision, the dedication that these two have put into this wonderful community resource is just immeasurable, and all of this is the result. So thrilled to have the Povich family here today. I love Shirley. I mean, I just, every second I ever spent with him, and I don't have to, tell you guys, I mean, it was just a joy. I mean, he was just a wonderful human being, and every once in a while I have to remind myself, I mean, from the age of about 10, I mean, I learned to read from Shirley's column this morning. I'm serious. I mean, I probably starting at about 10, that before I'd go to school, I read that column. I wanted to know what he thought about anything and everything every day. And he's just such a wonderful writer. And then when I did my book, of course, I could write 10 books about Walter Johnson, and I still wouldn't have written more than Shirley did over the years. So, okay, I'm trying, Bruce. This beautiful sculpture here is literal in the sense that this scene took place undoubtedly countless times over the years, but it represents an association between these two men and now between our families that a lot of people aren't aware of, that goes much deeper and broader and longer than anybody would imagine. It's almost 100 years now, and it started in 1924 when Shirley, as a Cubs sports reporter with the Post, had the good fortune to begin his career at the age of 19 covering the 1924 season in Washington. What a propitious time that was, as they went on to win the World Series. And by 1927, Walter's last year as a pitcher, Shirley was the sports editor for the Post at the ripe old age of, what would he have been, 22 at that time. And then my grandfather managed the Senators for a number of years. And, Shirley wrote constantly about and defended Walter. He actually had a very good record as a manager, just couldn't quite cop a pennant because he was up against the Yankees and of Ruth and Gehrig, and the Athletics of Grove and Fox and Cochran and who else? Two of the great teams of all time. But many, many columns where Shirley is saying, what are you, to the critics, what are you talking about? What do you want? He won over 90 games 3 years in a row, and that was a tough thing to do. On and on. There's so many. Mom loved Shirley. She knew him from when she was a kid, running around the ballpark when her dad was the manager, and we just every once in a while Walter's 100th birthday celebration at the high school in 1987. We got to spend all day with Shirley, and he stayed not just for the daytime. They had two ceremonies, one for the students and then one later in the evening for everybody else, and Shirley stayed the entire day, made wonderful speeches, and all the way up until I'll close with an anecdote that I love to tell about when I was just beginning to write my biography of my grandfather. I had done all the research, and somehow one day Mom and I were talking about who would write the foreword, and of course there was only one person that I had in mind, and Mom said, "Oh, good, because that's that's what I was thinking too." And then she said, "Why don't you ask him now?" Like, what are you talking about? I'm just starting to write this thing. He goes, well, you know, he's getting up there. He was probably 88 at the time, I think, but still going strong. I mean, sure, he was driving, you know, everything. No indication, but, you know, 88, you never know. And she really pushed it. No, seriously, ask him now. He'll do it. Everybody says, Mom, I am not going to ask Shirley Povich to write the foreword to a book I haven't written yet. I cannot do that. I'm trusting, like a lot of things that happened in the course of that project for me. I just, you know, you have to take some leaps of faith on occasion, and I took a lot, and that was one of them. And then, of course, I mean, seriously, I am proud to have my name on the cover of that book. But you know what? When I look at it, I'm even prouder to have the name Shirley Povich on there. And I made sure that the people that designed the cover had Shirley's name as large as mine, because as I told Mom, I said, well, he's going to sell a lot more books than I would. So,
Thank you.
thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Hank. All right, now for a man who seriously needs no introduction. I can't count the number of times that I've had to correct people who referred to Maury Povich Field. I was out trimming the roses yesterday, and a guy walked by. He said he was from Texas, and he looked up and he said, "This is a beautiful field." And he asked me if Shirley Povich was Maury's wife or his mother. So ever since John and I traveled to New York to discuss this project, this idea of Shirley Povich Field with Maury. Hey, Don, thanks for setting up the meeting 24 years ago. Maury has backed us all the way. Maury, I'm grateful to you for your support you've given our Big Train baseball and for your leadership on this project. Maury Povich.
Thank you, Bruce. What? What's that? Oh,
It's,
this is my brother David, everyone. He's got skin in the game here at Povich Field, along with his wife and my sister-in-law, Connie. Okay?
Okay. All right.
I'll put it on later. Okay.
Put it on now. It's better.
Thank you.
Put it down lower. Perfect. Thank you.
Does he do this on your show?
That's my big brother, David Povich, everyone. But David, along with his wife, my sister-in-law, Connie Povich, along with my sister, Lynn, and her husband, Steve Shepard, they have skin in the game when it comes to Povich Field and this sculpture garden. Okay, now, I also want to thank the fact that Shirley Povich has 5 of his grandchildren here today. I want to thank them very much. We've got Andrew and Judy and Joanna and Douglas. They are David's kids, and my daughter Amy. They're all here today. We thank them very much. But more than anything else, when I take a look at these two here, and when it comes to family, I think my father, other than sitting in perpetuity next to his family, he would say to anyone, if I'm going to sit next to anyone for the rest of my life and for eternity, it would be Walter Johnson. And I'll tell you why. It's very simple. And it's in the foreword to Hank's book about his grandfather. It wasn't necessarily what Walter did on the field, although my father, along with Tim, would say he was the greatest pitcher of all time. He said he loved Walter Johnson because it was the manner of his manhood. The fact that he was the most honest, the most humble, and the most humane of any athlete he had ever been around. And that's why he was so marvelously attached to Walter, both on the field and off the field. And the two of them right here, the fact that that's going to be here long after we're gone, I mean, it strikes a great chord in my heart and my family's heart. I'll tell you how modest my father thought of Walter. He took him to Griffith Stadium to watch this phenom young pitcher named Bob Feller, what everyone was talking about. as the fastest pitcher in the history of baseball. And so my father took Walter to the park, probably in 1936, and said, "Walter, take a look at this young man." And Walter's watching him pitch. And Dad says, "Is he faster than you?" And Walter hesitated for a long time. You know, he could have probably said, "Oh no, let me tell you how fast I pitched," and all that. But Walter just hesitated for a long time and said, after Dad asked, "Is he faster than you?" And Walter said, "No." That was it. I also want to acknowledge two other people who my father would be so proud that they're here. Don Graham of the Graham family, the longtime owners of the Washington Post. My father worked for his grandfather, my father worked for his mother, and my father worked for Don. Don, please stand up. You've got skin in the game here at Povich Field as well. And I also want to acknowledge the longtime executive editor of the Washington Post, who's here, who made the Post as good as ever, Leonard Downey. Leonard is here. There you go. Good to see you, Len. So, I mean, this is a marvelous day for the family. You could not possibly give more of a tribute to my father than not only this sculpture, but this field. And what he would love the most about Shirley Povich Field would be that in June, in July, when these young people came here to play in this marvelous league, this very competitive league, they used wooden bats. That's what my father would love more than anything else. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Maury. So I want to thank Montgomery Community Media for being here and live streaming this event. So you'll be able to see this on the YouTube channel of MCM. I want to thank Brenda Dunham of Eye on the Ball Photography for being our resident photographer today. From the start, I thought these sculptures would be a magnet for sports fans from across the region. And I'm grateful to Brenda, who's here today to capture you with them in the photograph. I do want to ask you to be patient. We're going to start with, I'd like to get a group photo of all the speakers, and then we'll go to the families and donors, and then others of you who would like, Brenda will be here. We want to have everybody have a photograph of this grand day, and I want to thank Chris and Megan from Text Design who produced the program that you have. Now, before we close, I'm hoping that my folks up in the control room there will have a happy birthday we can sing along to in honor of Walter Johnson's 134th birthday. On this very day in 1887 in Humboldt, Kansas, the greatest hurler in baseball history was born. So can we have happy birthday? Can we all stand and sing happy birthday? Play it. Sing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Walter. Happy birthday to you. And now, let's have a rousing take me out to the ball game. And then while you're waiting to get your photograph taken, we've got a cake for Walter. Let's have take me out to the ball game. Thank you all for being here. There we go. Sing.